Welcome to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations. It's November 25th, 2014, and today we're in Edmonton, Alberta, in the studio of Fraser Brinsmead. For over 33 years, Fraser has practiced architecture, and during that time he has designed many prominent buildings in the Edmonton area. Recently, he has been using his architectural and personal philosophies to pursue one of his old passions, that of being a visual artist. Through his paintings, he attempts to draw us into his vision of the urban environment. A view filled with tall buildings, bright colors, aromas, sounds, power, and even nature, and the sense of how this environment affects our daily lives. So sit back in a nice, warm, comfortable place as I talk to Fraser about his art. Welcome to Conversations.
Thanks for inviting me.
And it's always nice to be welcomed into an artist's studio. I mean, there's stuff on the wall that hasn't been seen by people yet, and that's always kind of a treat. So thank you for that.
Stuff in production, for sure.
Yeah. So, for the last 33 years or so, you've been a very active architect in the Edmonton area.
True.
And recently you've become very passionate about being a visual artist. I'd love to start our conversation by you talking about how your experiences in architecture and those in art complement each other.
Yeah, actually, in my case, Terry, that's fairly easy. I started off when I was a young boy loving art and drawing, and early on I was given some wise advice that said maybe you could channel that into architecture. Became an architect, and one of the things that I really loved about my career was I was able to use my artistic skills to inform my architecture. So I learned how to draw buildings, and I learned how to design buildings through that. And then about 15 years ago, in my world, the computer took over and started to help us with those renderings. And I loved the facility that the computer gave us, but I wasn't doing a lot of drawing. So I started to get a pent-up desire and need, and so. But in my early career, I spent a lot of time drafting and drawing 3D images of buildings and putting people in those images to talk about my architecture to my clients and sell my projects. So as I got older and I got more time on my hands, I thought, I should go back to art, my first love. And I wasn't sure what I should paint. So I started off painting, another love of mine is music. So I started off painting street buskers, musicians, in context, in the city. Mm-hmm. But I was focusing on the people, the street, the musicians. That was my subject. And I started to show some of my paintings to people, and they said, wow, really like this, but your contexts are maybe as interesting, if not more interesting, than some of your subjects. So I said, okay, well that's interesting. So slowly I evolved to painting the city and buildings and people and how they interact. And if I look back on my career as an architect, I spent all my energies in trying to develop buildings that would be usable for people. Now, I love to look at what other people have done, and I love to see how people use them, and I love to capture that spirit.
Yeah. Just a thing that I wanted to talk to you about briefly is something that I remember when I was one of your consultants on a project. And this was in the early days, pre-computers. And I loved being at your meetings in the boardroom with the old flimsy paper, and you would sketch what you were talking about so we could see what was in your brain. And that always mesmerized me, how you could take that pencil and draw on that piece of paper these beautiful sketches, which I hope you've kept, because they'd be fantastic to be able to go back and look at, because they were really, really well done. So just as an aside.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it's still...
And I would like to say how appreciative I was of you and how much you helped me realize a lot of those things.
Yeah, well, we had
some of them weren't that easy.
We had fun.
We sure did.
Now, all artists can only do what they do by having passion. What fuels your passion for your art?
Fuels my passion. Gosh, that is really interesting. I'm not even sure. I've always been excited and interested about faraway places, and buildings have from an early age fascinated me, and exciting urban spaces have interested me. I think I've been far more intrigued by urban spaces than I have pure landscape spaces. Which is interesting to say, growing up in Edmonton, which has never really been a very urban city. Maybe it was always these fascinating photographs I would see of New York and of Paris and London, and that just intrigued me, and I wanted more of that. I remember vividly growing up in Lac-La-Biche. I was 4 years old when we moved to Edmonton, and I remember Lac-La-Biche didn't even have a street light when I was 4 years old. We moved to Edmonton, and we moved to Crestwood. And I remember driving down 149th Street for the first time and seeing the street lights at 149th Street and Stony Plain Road, and remembering it looked like a fire light display at Disneyland. It just exploded in my mind. I thought, this is amazing, and I think maybe that's just fueled my complete fascination for the city. Yeah. And I just don't seem to be able to get enough of it. I'm drawn to these fascinating urban places, and I want to describe them to other people.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to talk about now, is to sort of expand on that a little bit. And you obviously are trying to show an urban environment. And what are you trying to show by that view?
Okay, it's not that complicated in my mind. I really want people to look at my paintings and hear the sounds and smell the smells. Imagine themselves there. If I find a view or a place in the city exciting, I want to bring that to other people. And so, if you look at a lot of my paintings, I think there's a lot of diversity there. Because there's just so much diversity in cities today. So it's just a constant striving to get the lighting right, to get the qualities of the image, heighten them. Like photography, in a way, has eclipsed painting in terms of giving you the actual. But with painting, you can exaggerate components.
Right.
And you can diminish other things. So you can bring out the qualities that are most interesting. So I'm constantly editing the image to heighten the experience I want the viewer to feel, to share with me. So it's a sharing, and I can't get more excited than somebody looking at an image and just getting excited about it. And it's always interesting to me what images people like and people don't. A lot of people like some of my work and don't like others, and other people like that. And so I tend to be interested in all my work. So it's fascinating to see that there's so much diversity in what other people are interested in, don't. So I'm playing that game too. I'm trying to imagine how other people are going to experience the paintings. I can't paint in a vacuum. I can't just paint for me. Painting for me is communication, and it's sharing with other people.
Yeah, and you're trying to show your excitement for that environment.
Exactly what I'm trying to do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there is beauty in the city as much as there is beauty in the mountains or on the prairie.
I find it so. Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more.
I've always felt that balance is important in one's life. Is that something that's important in your life and in the pursuit of your art?
I absolutely agree with you. I think balance is hugely important. I know, watching you, you're interested in so many different things. I've always tried to bring a lot of different interests to all that I do. I really feel as an architect it was important to understand a lot of different aspects of human life. So I have a tremendous variety of endeavors that I think educate my art. It helps me understand people, and understanding people, I think, helps me sometimes frame my visions. It also helps me understand how the people in a painting are interacting. So balance, family, I'm active in sports, music, architecture, painting, all those things I think come together.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest focus now in terms of my expressive life is painting, and I'm trying to bring all those things together.
You have to get away to appreciate what it actually is, right?
Boy, that is very true. You've got to revisit things. You've got to immerse yourself, and then you got to dry off.
That's right. So, oftentimes, when we're pursuing an art, whatever that might be, we often have mentors that we look up to. I mean, sometimes, let's just take music as an example. I mean, there are people that have the great guitar player that they strive to be, and you have the chance to see this performer, and you look and see him play incredibly well. And there's two things you can do at that point. You can say, well, that's it, I'm going to go home and burn my guitar. or you can use
or
it
your
as,
fiddle.
Or you can use it as an inspiration to say, you know, I'll never be that good, but I'm going to try darn hard to get better than what I am right now.
Yeah.
So, do you have any mentors as far as your art is concerned?
Yeah, I have throughout life, and I realize when I reflect on it, a lot of mentors. Probably different than some people. I think some people really understand, categorize, and define the mentorship that they've had in their lives. I've never done that. I've always sort of tried as much to do my own thing, realizing that I've been influenced a great deal by the people that I admired, but seldom consciously. It's almost more of a subconscious thing with me. But I have as many music mentors that I think influence my art as artistic mentors. Mm-hmm. And I always find what's interesting about mentorship is that you ask this question to great artists, and they'll give you names that don't relate in any way to what they do. Yeah. All the Impressionists, magnificent. I love Impressionistic painting. Doesn't really apply to what I do, but I love it. And I love so many of the great masters. I mean, Rembrandt, Turner, I think is a brilliant painter. Vermeer, everybody likes Vermeer. I love him too. As a matter of fact, his work is probably, more directly associated with the sort of thing that I'm trying to accomplish in so many levels below his skill. But that's one that really relates. But in terms of helping me shape my own direction, there's a group of artists called the Ashcan Group, and they were big in the 40s, and they got their name because they painted the cities of those times. But a criticism from an art critic said that it looked like the colors they were using came from the bottom of an ash can. So it was not meant to be a compliment, as the Impressionist label was not meant to be a compliment, but it became their definition. Magnificent, and a guy named Edward Hopper is one of the greats of that era. I painted a painting called The Nighthawks, and I just love their work, mm-hmm. and I do emulate their work. I try to understand what they're going for, and that. So there's a lot of mentorship there.
Yeah.
I should say, with musicians though, I have been moved by some of my favorite musicians to actually paint them.
Okay.
Just recently, Jack Semple is a hero of mine. He's a brilliant musician, and I saw him perform at Jeffrey's, and I got a photograph of him that was just magnificent. So I painted him, right. And then the next time he played at Jeffrey's, I presented him with this painting.
Oh, cool!
And I'm proud to say he displays it in his studios. I'm very, very proud of it. But there's a connection that I have now with Jack Semple and I'm thinking of doing a whole series of paintings of some of my Canadian musical heroes, and just saying here. I would never suggest that they would ever buy them, but here, because it's me connecting with them in the only way I can.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I love about art is the process. an artist goes through from the glimmer of an idea to the fruition of the work. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your process that you go through.
Yeah, that I do have now. I've developed over the years a process that I understand, and in the beginning it was difficult for me because every painting was daunting because I just didn't have a process that I understood. So it seemed like I was starting over, and through many trials and errors, I've developed a process. The spark that ignites the process is the difficult one. I'm not sure what it is that turns me on with the scene, but there's something that catches my eye, and I decide I'm going to invest hundreds of hours on this thing, and I'm never sure what that is. That's the hard to define one, but the definable process for me has become deciding on the image and working with it in sketch format until I can establish what it is I'm going to try to express. So I go through a black and white sketch process, which is always very informative because it helps you understand, where the darks, where the lights, where the overall balance of the painting is going to come before you get too immersed in the detail of the painting. And for instance, this is a sketch that I've done for this one. So it just sort of starts to inform me about the important elements of the painting.
Right.
And most of my paintings are large, so then I will do, from the photograph, I will do a drawing on my canvas of the photograph, usually in fairly high detail, because my paintings are in high detail. I love the detail of a city. That's part of the excitement for me, is getting that right. Then I will seal that drawing into my canvas with some gesso. So now there's this underlayment, and you can see that in that right there. That canvas right there has been, and now that image is sealed. So I can now start painting on that. And so initially I go in and I just very quickly start to do underpainting, and I'll just fill in big blocks of color and just define the massive elements. And that's what I'm at right here. Very very loose. Everything is just this is there's the sidewalk. There's an umbrella. The things, and again, still trying to sort of develop the darks and lights, and everything that's light tends to recede, and everything that's dark comes forward. Mm-hmm. Depth is just a huge part of what I'm trying to express. Mm-hmm. To me, that's sort of the trick you're trying to play with the viewer. You've got a two-dimensional surface. You want them to feel the city receding, and that's big.
You're walking into the scene.
You're walking into the scene. So that's huge. And then once I'm sort of happy with how that's gone, then I always start at the back with a detail, and I just start coming forward. Mm-hmm. And that's an iterative process where you're doing some detail. But in order to understand that, you've got to work here. So you're going back and forth until you finally just have a painting. And it's always a mystery to me. I'm always up close, and I'm always trying to get as far away from my paintings as I can. So this is a small studio. I can only get around 10 feet away at the best from my painting. So I'm constantly painting, and then I will take it out and I will put it into another room where I can get 30 feet away, and I'm just constantly doing that analysis, squinting, getting far away from it. If you work too closely and you never get away, your painting will be a disaster. But it's always interesting to me how paintings always seem to be going badly, and I'm sure it's right for other artists. You're up close, you're painting things, and you're saying, "Oh, this is just not working," and then suddenly you get back from it, and you say, "Whoa, wait a minute, that's exactly what I'm going for." Right. So there's a faith that I now have that if I'm diligent and I work hard and I don't get careless, that I will be rewarded with what I'm going for. Mm-hmm. So in a nutshell, that's my process, and now I understand that. So I'm not daunted, and I really feel with that process I can paint anything that I want.
Right.
And that's comforting.
Yeah. So as you say, the painting aspect of the process has been simplified. The subject has not.
It hasn't.
And it never will be.
No, it never will be. It's that spark, and you and I were talking about that earlier, about what is it that we paint. You have to paint something that interests you. You have to photograph something that interests you, because that's your vision, that's my vision.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to show people. I'm not trying to show people Turner's vision. I'm trying to show them Fraser Brinsmead, even though that's humble and probably not as worthy. It's all I have.
It's the best I got.
It's the best I got. And you have to have the confidence that at least if I'm not pleasing other people, I'm pleasing myself.
Yeah. You mentioned you like to paint large paintings.
Yeah.
What's the biggest one you've done?
The biggest one I've done, I did a diptych that is 4x8.
Okay, that's big.
Yeah, for Microsoft.
Piece of plywood.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was big. I had a commission for Microsoft. They wanted 7 of my paintings of Edmonton to decorate their new offices with. I gave them 5, but they had this one big wall, and I had this opportunity to do the river valley and the Victoria Promenade. So I said, well, this is a really nice opportunity to really. I couldn't do it all on one canvas, so I had to do it on two 4 foot by 4 foot canvases, which was a real challenge because connecting them and painting through to make it look like one painting actually became a logistic problem for me. But it was also very exciting to be able. But what's interesting about you do a large canvas, you get 15 feet back, and it's just a small canvas. I mean, it's all your relationship to the work and how close. I mean, if you're 2 feet away from a small painting, it looks like a huge painting. So, but anyway, it was quite exciting for me to be able to do that.
So your painting is done. Is there anything more that you need to do other than your personal satisfaction, or now does it become important to you to show that to people so that they can enjoy your vision?
That's sort of good. I sort of have 2 processes. One process is where I keep painting and then I give them to my galleries as I've completed them. The other process is where I've got a show to do and I'm painting a bunch of canvases, like 15, and I'm saving them up and giving them all at once. And I can't decide which I like better. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I like to save them up, and then I get to unfurl them all, and it's always a pleasure because of the relationship I have with my gallery to go in there and show them what I've been doing. So they're the first, other than my family and maybe a few friends that might see stuff I do, they're that first line, and so it's always exciting to get that initial reaction. Mm-hmm. And there's a big thrill to get it all up on the wall and to have an opening, to have everybody come and critique or just to view. So that's a process I really love. So I don't necessarily have a need to paint it and to show it. Okay. I'm quite happy with painting it and putting it and storing it away until I can unfurl. Because I like the logic of, like an album of music where all the songs relate. Mm-hmm. You like to show the whole thing at once because then people can see the thread as opposed to a one-off. Right. But I do enjoy the one-off as well. I mean, I don't have any issues with that. So it's as I say, I can paint then show, or I can paint, store, and show. I've got to the point now where I'm not impatient. I know people will eventually see them, but that to me is important. Yeah. That I eventually do get to share.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yes.
This is very important to you to let people view your work. Very important to me.
I know that I paint as an expression that I want to share with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I might paint though, if I didn't have an opportunity. Yeah. I think I might anyways. I'm not positive.
I relate my photography to chopping wood. When you're chopping wood, there's only one thing on your mind, and that's chopping wood. when you're taking photographs, there's only one thing on your mind, and that's taking a photograph. You're not thinking about anything else. It's this pleasure zone that you go into that just allows you to be yourself and be creative and not worry about, geez, we got to get groceries tomorrow, you know.
Yeah.
The kids are coming back to the city, we got to hit the house all cleaned up,
Yeah.
ready for them. You know, you're not thinking about any of that
Yeah.
stuff. You're thinking about the painting,
Yeah.
wood chopping,
Yeah.
the photograph. And it's very therapeutic.
It is
In
very
your life.
therapeutic. It is. But the chopping wood analogy is a good one because you chop wood so that you can have fire.
Right.
The fire might be the sharing. Would you chop that wood if you didn't need a fire?
Yeah.
You know, you have to ask yourself that. And quite frankly, if I analyze Fraser Brinsmead, I'm expressive. So the things I do that are expressive, I like to share. One of the things I loved about architecture was I like to design a building and let people hate it or love it. You know, I like the putting it out there.
Yeah.
And painting is an extension of that for me, and I just feel so grateful to be able to, you know, at this time in my life when my architectural career is winding down, that I have, you know, the opportunity to carry something on that is closely associated with it. And I didn't realize it, but all that time I was doing the architecture, I was preparing myself for the art.
Yeah.
I was always thinking in my mind that when I retire as an architect, maybe I'll take up painting. But what'll I paint? And I'll have been away from it for so long, I won't have any skills. So the fact that there's this carryover, I realize that architecture prepared me for this.
Yeah. So you mentioned art galleries. Tell me about some of the art galleries where you display your work.
Right now, I'm at the West End Gallery in Edmonton and Victoria, and I'm in the Eclectic Image Gallery at Shops at Wailea in Maui.
Yeah.
And I was in the Richard Danskin Gallery in Palm Desert, and unfortunately, though, they've gone out of business. So I don't have I don't have a gallery in Palm Desert anymore.
Yeah.
But I feel blessed because I have sold paintings out of Maui. I've sold paintings out of Palm Desert, Victoria, and Edmonton. So I consider myself an international painter. You know, like you have to grasp it, whatever you get it. Notice I said painter, not artist.
Yeah.
That would
And I
be.
assume you have a website too.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll put that on my
Great.
on mine so people can click in on that and see some of your work and where
Great.
they can find the West End Gallery and go and take a look at
Yeah,
some of
well,
your work.
that'd be
Because
wonderful.
being an engineer, I love what you do because I relate to it very easily. There's just something about lines that I love about the city. You know, as you mentioned previously, they're very sharp and defined.
Yeah.
And then there's this chaos of people that sort of intermingles with all of that, and it's really wonderful. So you're doing a good job. I
Oh,
really like
thank
your
you.
work.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that our careers weren't that different, and you know, sort of where we've evolved isn't completely different either, because our interests have stayed true, and that's something that I've always carried forward. And I kind of tell my kids that if you continue to work on things that you've loved your whole life, you get better.
Mm-hmm.
If you're constantly flopping around from one thing to another, you never get good at anything. 10,000 hours, which I think is what you're supposed to have until you get good at something, is a lot of hours.
It's a lot of woodshedding.
You know, so if you can still love the same things at 50 and at 60 that you loved when you were 20 and 30, and you've worked at it, you know, you might actually be getting better at it.
That's right. So Fraser, thanks for letting me do this.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
Right. Well, Terry, it's been an absolute honor. Thank you for inviting me.
And keep up the good work.
Will do.
Take care. You have been listening to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations. I hope you can join me for my next conversation when I talk with Martin Kerr about his music.